This is 4.1, day 2, introducing radian measure. These are some of the objectives that we're going to cover in this lesson. You don't need to write them down. We're going to introduce what is a radian measure, how to sketch those angles, and then identify coterminal angles, complementary and supplementary angles, and then to be able to convert between the two different measures, from a degree to a radian, and from a radian to a degree, between the two. Alright, this first slide, you don't need to write it down. The definition of a radian is the measure of a central angle so that the length of the intersected arc equals the length of the radius. So we introduced arcs in geometry where we have a circle equals 2 pi r. So the distance around an entire circle is 2 pi. If our radius is 1. So when we give you an angle, and we want you to go all the way around, yesterday we said that's 360 degrees. Now in radian measure, this is 2 pi. So here are those 4 quadrants again. We're just going to graph a few of the angles on this circle graph, and then when we introduce unit circle later, it'll become a little more familiar to you too. So this, I would say maybe you would want to write down the same quadrants apply as yesterday with degree measure. And we said the distance all the way around the circle is 2 pi. So if here is 0 radians, that's my initials, just like it was in degrees. If I want to go all the way around one rotation, then I would be at 360 or 2 pi. Now, if I want to go halfway around the circle, how many pi would I be? 1 pi. So if I want to go halfway around, then I would be right over here at pi. Do you agree? Let's say I want to go to this angle measure. What would that be? Pi over 2. Be half of that pi. What if I want to go from pi over 2 to 2 pi over 2, and then what would that be? 3 pi over 2. And then if I went pi over 2, 2 pi over 2, 3 pi over 2, 4 pi over 2. Do you agree? Which reduces to 2 pi? Okay. I'm just going to graph a couple more. Let's say I want to go this angle right here, halfway between 0 and pi over 2. What angle would that be? Halfway between 0 and pi over 2 would be pi over 4. So later on, when we introduce the unit circle, we're going to ask you to memorize and remember the degree measure and the radian measure. So let's talk about the degrees here for a moment. What is the angle with pi over 2? What is that in degrees? 90. What is pi? 180. What's 3 pi over 2? Another 90, which is 270. All the way around, 360. Later on, we're going to use formulas to help you to convert these, because they might not all be nice. They might not be just pi over 4. And then what would that one be? Pi over 4, 45 degrees, 1/4 of that. All right. So let's go ahead and graph some of these on their own quadrants, or our own planes. So pi over 4 we just did. So when I graph these, I think about the denominator. And I have 0 radians here, and I have pi over here. So all the way around we know is pi. What I would do is I would split up that top half of the pi into 4 pieces, because that's my denominator. So I would, here's my whole pi, and I want 4 equal parts. So I'd split this in half, so that represents 2 pi over 4, and I'd split it in half again, so it looks like this. Now my angle is 1/4 of that pi. So I go to right here. So there is my angle theta, pi over 4. So let's do the next one. 3 pi over 4. So what is my denominator? 4, so we would do the same thing, but now we're going to count how many? 3. In what quadrant will that fall in? 2. Quadrant 2. So we're going to have 0 here, pi here. Just split that top half into 4 equal parts. Split it in half, split it in half again. So now I have to count 3 pieces of the pie. So here is my initial. This would be pi over 4. This would be 2 pi over 4. And this would be 3 pi over 4. So my angle looks like this. There's my theta. Pi over 2. We've already talked about pi over 2. When you start to visualize where pi over 2 is now. Here's my pi. Now I want to split the pi up into how many pieces? 2. And how many am I going to count? 1 piece of the pie over 2. So my angle starts here. That's my initial, 0 radians. And goes up to 1 pi. So pi over 2 is my theta. Last one on this slide is 2 pi over 3. So now I'm going to split that pi up into how many pieces? 3 pieces. And then how many am I going to choose? I'm going to choose 2 pies out of the 3. So there's my pie. I'm going to split up into 3 equal pieces. So there's 1 piece. There's 2 pieces. There's 3 pieces. And I'm going to choose 2 of them. That's my numerator, 2 pieces out of the pie. So here's my initial. There's my terminal. And there is, would be pi over 3. And this is 2 pi over 3. So my angle looks like that. There's my theta. At FST, this probably looks familiar to you. Couple more. All right, let's go in the negative direction now. So all those angles on the last slide were positive direction. So now we want to go in the negative direction. So we're going to go in the clockwise direction. We're going to split up our pi. So here would be 0. Here would be negative pi. I'm going to split up that bottom half of the pie into how many pieces? 2. So this would be what angle down here? Negative pi over 2. This would be negative 2 pi over 2, or reduce this to negative pi. I have to continue going, true? So I split up the top half of this pie now into 4 equal pieces. This would be negative 3 pi over 2. This would be negative 4 pi over 2, which is negative 2 pi. So I have to count how many pieces of the pie? 3 of them. So here is my initial. There is 1 pi over 2. Here's negative 2 pi over 2. Here's negative 3 pi over 2. So we have to denote a little arrow with the direction, telling us that we're going down and around. And that is my theta. The last one is probably the most difficult to graph because now we're not talking about pieces of the pi form, like we have to split up into 4 equal parts or 2 equal parts, but it says it's negative 3 radians. So let's talk about the entire circle in radians. The entire distance around that circle is 2 pi. Do you agree? So if theta equals 2 pi, what would it be in radians? So I want you to take 2 and times it by pi. What do you get? What is it? No, that's in degree mode. So actually take 2 times pi. What is it? 6.28. Good. So if you want to get it out of pi terms, the distance all the way around one circle is 2 pi, or approximately 6.28 radians. So now let's talk about going halfway around. Oops. So halfway around. So if my theta equals pi, how many radians is that approximately? How many radians? 3.14 radians. So we're pretty close. If we want to graph the angle negative 3 radians, we're really close to pi. So now let's go ahead and graph it. So if I have this picture, and here is 0 radians, here would be negative pi over 2, here would be negative pi, which we said is negative 3.14 in radians. Are we really close to that line? We're just below it. So this is kind of like a very close sketch where we start here, go in the negative direction, we're really close. And this is our theta. We're very close to that pi value. So sometimes we won't have the pi notation in it as a fraction. It might be just like this, negative 3 radians. Anytime you see a degree symbol, it's in degree mode. Anything that has something different, that is radians, sometimes with the pi in it, sometimes without. Start the recording.